This is the Stabby Road Podcast.
Hey, we're back. Welcome to another episode of the Stabby Road Podcast there. And this week, again, we're going to do another current film, which is, I think, another banger from 2025. Last time we were on, we covered Sinners, which was, we went on for quite a long time and a very deep dive into that. This time we are doing the Filippo brothers, I want to say second film, but it might actually be their third film. Second film, their big sophomore effort, Bring Her Back. And let me introduce you guys to our hosts here, our guest hosts. Normally we have Sonia, normally we have Joe. And we are, believe it or not, just to plug that, we are going to have a big reunion show this summer with all the original guest hosts back for a month. But in the meantime, we have wonderfully replaced them with two great hosts, and that is filmmaker Beck Fortis and filmmaker Manny Serrato. So, guys, let's start talking about Bring Her Back. I really kind of want to jump in sort of chronologically. I think only because there's so many great reveals along the way that I think it's just I think it would be a really nice way of discussing this and even revealing it to anyone who's never seen it. And as a matter of fact, if you've never seen it, pause this right now, go watch it, and come back because
we're definitely talking spoilers.
We're spoilering it up. So this basically.
Do we want to talk everybody's like the first thoughts?
We can do that. I was going to sort of do that along the way, but let's do that. Let's start with Beck. Beck, what was your initial first thoughts walking out of the movie theater?
How people talk about how horror movies traumatize them. Like, I was thinking when people were saying that and there was articles coming out, I thought it was going to be in the way that, like, people are like, oh, the Terrifier 3 traumatized me. This traumatized me the way that After Sun traumatized me, and I was not prepared for that. So I found myself kind of, I went to a matinee by myself, and there was like one other person in the theater, and I was choking back tears walking all the way home. So it really devastated me.
Yeah.
Yeah, Manny, what were your initial quick thoughts?
I was glad that body horror's back.
I
thought it was great. Yeah.
You got the substance and we're really making a swing for body horror.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I fucking loved it, man. Like, I love any brother directed movies, of course. There was one moment we'll get to where I almost walked out of the theater. That's never happened before. And it was because when that scene hit, I gripped my brother who was sitting next to me, gripped onto his shoulder, curled into a ball, looked away, which again, I've never done that in a theater before. And I could still hear it and the sound was disturbing. I was like, oh, I might have to walk out. It's that sort of intense. And I think any movie that gets a reaction like that, especially now after having seen so many horror movies, those reactions are rare. I have to sort of give that points. Yeah.
I sort of had a very similar reaction going into it. They're two kind of phobias that I have in my life, and both of them were in this, and I'll get into those as we come across this. So let's start from the beginning. Essentially, the movie starts with this, I guess, sort of VHS or half-inch looking kind of found footage video of a ritual. We don't know exactly what the ritual is quite yet. One thing I did notice is that the person who was getting, for lack of a better phrase, because we didn't know exactly what happened to this person, but the sacrificial lamb woman there, I noticed right away had a little bit of a birthmark under her eye, which kind of comes into play a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
We jump forward to these two young kids, Andy and Piper. Andy's a bit older. Piper is a woman with visual challenges. She can see she could see shapes, bright lights, and I think that's kind of it. So she could, she's not going to trip over things initially, but can sort of make her way through life.
And something I really like
Mhm.
about that is twofold. One, the Philippines are like so good at capturing like a certain type of like modern aesthetic while also keeping it timeless. Like I could see this movie still being watchable in like 10 years. You know, it's not like the brother uses Snapchat and it's not like, hey, look at me, I'm on Snap, you know, it's just like that's how he's communicating with people. And then I also really like siblings that, you know, they don't look alike, you know, and there's a reason for that, you know, because of how the family was made up. But just personally, I love seeing that because, you know, the way my family is made up, not all of us look exactly alike, but I like seeing it represented that doesn't matter for how bonded they are as siblings.
Mm.
They are siblings, whether or not they look like siblings or whatever their sort of, you know, ethnic racial makeup is, that
Mhm.
they still feel like a brother and sister, and that I love. I love seeing brother sisters represented, especially in that way. That you know, we do that in my movie. I experienced that in real life. You know, it's like, you know, it's something I really like seeing.
Yeah, and the fact that Piper is visually impaired isn't just random. There's an actual huge impact on the audio and the sound mix of the film
Mm.
that revolves a lot around it, which we will get into as we talk.
But you see that sort
Yeah.
of immediately in terms of how they show reveals of characters.
Mhm.
You know, you may be focusing on the Piper's ear, and the character they're revealing is blurred out and out of focus. You
Mhm.
know, and I like that style of filmmaking where you're using all of the elements to push the story forward.
Right. Yeah. So they discover rather quickly that their dad slipped in the shower and died, which is extraordinarily tragic for them, and even more complicated an issue for them as you realize as we will go through the film. They end up in a foster home run by a woman named Laura. Initially, Andy was not supposed to go because he had some trouble past, which we will again learn about as we walk through this episode. But they end up both there. Laura, when you first meet her, played incredibly by Sally Hawkins. It's again a little sidebar. It's too bad that so much horror isn't taken that seriously by studios, because she fucking deserves an award for this, because it's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
So do the
Yeah.
kids. Those kids are fucking
And
incredible.
the kids, and in my opinion, Ollie, who we will get into as we meet him.
Something that really struck me at the beginning when you see the tight bond is that bit where those mean girls are bullying the
Yes.
sister. I feel, I feel a lot of times in real life that children can be the worst bullies, especially if somebody is visibly different. And that bit where they're all kind of, imitating how her eyes, are positioned, that really kind of upset me, because it's like, yeah, kids can be really mean sometimes, and how the brother protects her, and she's like, they didn't like me, did they? And he's kind of like, oh, no, they liked you, and really doing his best to protect her. So
Yeah.
you see he is a protective figure from the very beginning, and he's always wanting to look out for her because she is a little bit different.
Yeah. I also felt that there's a certain type of bullying that I felt they got really right.
Hmm.
And I saw somebody say this a long time ago, and then my wife, who is a teacher, also talks about this too. And it's usually when boys bully other boys, they pick out the weakest boy. When girls bully other girls, they usually find the strongest girl. And what I loved about that was sort of kind of a sign of things to come, because she's ultimately the final girl, the one strongest enough, who finds a certain level of strength with one single word in that pool that gets her to live. And so that was that I thought was an interesting sign in the very beginning.
Something funny I found too. The actress playing her was she was 12 years old when they shot this.
Yeah.
And she was afraid that she was afraid of performing and everything, and she thought that kids were going to make fun of her because of her eyes in the movie.
Right.
And that was something that she kept like at the front of her head while performing. And then throughout the course of filming, she became more comfortable, and everything. But she thought that other kids were going to make fun of her because the eye movement and all that, like in real life.
Yeah.
So first
So-
film, they shot it chronologically to help her as
Yeah.
well, so that she could really kind of experience her character's journey. But I think she really held her own, especially a two-time Oscar nominee.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the actor's name is Sora Wong, and you're right, Manny. This is the first thing she's ever done. On top of that, which, again, amazing job for someone who's never acted before. And she also clearly, as Manny said, has a very similar visual impairment as the character of Piper.
I like that they actually used an actor that actually has, a disability as opposed to just casting, another actor.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But also too that, like, you couldn't. There's something so real about that, Beck. Yeah, you're absolutely right, because you also could, unless you got like wacky scleral lenses or something like that, even just the way she looks, meaning how she is looking at things. A human, Jesus Christ, a person with without that type of impairment can't look that way. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so for me, that was so real and so in the moment, and a great piece of honesty that you wouldn't find with someone who would just be acting that part.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also like if there's a kid who doesn't have that sort of impairment, a role for that, right? Then this girl doesn't get that opportunity, and this opportunity is such a unique one that she gets to really sing in such a part like this. That is
And in the scene again when they meet up with Laura, that comes into play in a very interesting way, because Andy sees a rug on the ground, and the rug is taped. And he goes, "Oh, is this for Piper?" And she goes, "No, it was for my daughter." And he goes, "Oh, how old is she?" And then she explains that her daughter has passed. But she hasn't pulled the tape up off the ground, which is actually something very telling. It's a sign of someone who hasn't moved on. And again, right away you kind of guess that there's something off about this Laura. Immediately, the fact that she also has a stuffed dog in the corner of the room.
Yeah.
Foreshadow.
Which is great foreshadow. Yeah.
Foreshadow.
Yes, exactly. And by the way, that was an actual dog. That was an actual
Taxidermy dog.
Taxidermy dog. Yeah. That they flew in. The brothers flew it in from another part of Australia. Literally, I think like first class and in a box to make sure nothing happened to it. And
the dog flies better than I do.
Yeah, exactly.
But when you got that A24 money,
yeah,
you can afford first class for your taxidermy.
Right.
I actually learned something about the filmmakers as well, because I thought it was such mature subject matter to be exploring the loss of a child from a parent's perspective. They got the inspiration because their cousin had a 2-year-old child who died. Yep. And she was kind of the last person to really let go of that. So they wrote both Talk to Me and Bring Her Back simultaneously. So they are companion films, I think. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting thing as well, because I was wondering, like, how do you write about such heavy subject matter? And it's like, because they know of somebody so close to them that's experienced that loss.
Yeah. And they also had a friend who like he was like their biggest supporter from when they were growing up, and when they blew up, he was like he would drive 7 hours to go see a screening of Talk to Me just to support them. He was always there. And then they were on the press tour for Talk to Me, and they get a call from his mom saying he died, and he was like a 23-year-old kid, and they were already writing Bring Her Back based on that experience with their you said it was their cousin, I think?
Cousin,
yeah, and they had planned this like big, grand, crazy ending, which, they sort of tilt in the direction of. But then when they got that news, they were like, no, we got to make it smaller. Like they were so inspired by him as well. And that's the face at the end that the movie's
that's what the film's dedicated to. Yeah.
And so like, it's tragic, but it's always so fascinating to me when artists can take like a really painful experience and use their art as therapy and turn it into something else.
Yeah.
And also the ability to like and the maturity to be able to pivot your story, you know, to go, oh, we have all the money in the world, we could go crazy with this ending, but let's pivot and make it more intimate, you know, and less, you know. And they talked about, you know, we'll get into spoilers, but spoilers, when Andy dies, they were like, it feels abrupt, it feels wrong, and he was like, because like people don't die at a place that's convenient for
Right.
story beats.
That's the thing.
You know, it's
Yeah.
like he's like, it should feel wrong. It shouldn't feel sort of cinematically satisfying. You know, it should feel
Mhm.
like this comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, nobody plans for a sudden death.
Yeah.
You know, and so yeah, it does feel, you know, we watched the movie recently, I think thanks to Manny. We watched Eden Lake recently.
Oh, whew.
And yeah, and so
Brutal, dude.
that's all unplanned deaths, you know,
Yep.
even when they were planned for it. I mean, you know, and I think there is something so much more subdermal of a feeling that you get when there is a death that you don't necessarily see coming for somebody that you've been caring about throughout the entire film, or even somebody that you've just bonded to, even if it's brief. If it's not something that you see coming, it can be a lot on you, you know. And I felt that way with Andy because, you know, because your brain goes, all right, the two of them are going to get away.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and
I thought it was very weird that he like it felt odd when he was dead.
Yeah.
It's what wait a minute. So what are we doing now? Wait, if
Yeah.
he's dead, because we've been basically watching the whole movie through his eyes.
Yeah.
right.
Like he's been the main protagonist, you know, where things are happening behind his back, and that's the perspective that the audience has. And now we killed him off like 10 minutes before the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Like right at the end, suddenly he's dead. And you swear, like, okay, well, he's probably not dead. He's incapacitated, but he's going to be fine. No, he's dead.
Yeah,
Like that one Simpsons bit where they've got the pig that they spent hours cooking and it's flying through the air. It's
Yeah.
like, it's just airborne. It's good. It's just airborne. And he's like, oh, it's gone, Hank.
yeah, because you're like that, like
I
his
was like,
lungs are just a little wet. His lungs are a little wet.
I was like, maybe he faked drowning. You know,
Yeah.
he died pretty quickly. Maybe he faked it. And then you see him in the bathroom. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
shit, dude.
Yeah, and again, because, you know, movies always sort of offer you a little bit of hope ahead of time.
Mm.
He's the one who figured everything out.
Yeah.
So you figured, okay, he went there to stop this. Not dissimilar to, like, say, you know, like a Scatman Crothers in The Shining,
Yeah.
to save everyone, and that's it. So who's coming to save you now?
And while we're on this
You know,
theme, I
yeah.
wanted to bring up a quote because we talked about this last time, and it was interesting to me watching this because a lot of subject that they're dealing with and even visual aesthetics and stuff like this is I'm zeroing in on this one movie I'm writing. I was reading an article that they were talking about. They were interviewing. They said that Andy's death was really painful because you become really attached to characters, and killing a character is such a big deal. And the Danny was saying that I don't think I could ever write a slasher film because it would be too devastating to kill all the characters off. And I was funny that we were just talking about this on the last episode, how I was struggling to kill characters off. And I was like, wow, it's so interesting that we were talking about that. Then we go and watch this movie, and the directors were saying the exact same thing. And I think there is something, especially in horror, to an empathetic writer, you know, a writer that does care about the characters, because we all love the movies where people are getting killed and heads are ripped off and all these things, but the movies that stick with me are the ones that are always like, you really care about the people. And you know, I got it with this movie, I got it with Sinners, I got it with Talk to Me. One of my favorite moments you can get in a horror movie is when you're sitting in the theater, you're 30 minutes in, you go, man, I love all these characters. And then you go immediately go, oh fuck, I don't want to watch them die now. And that's one of my favorite moments is, and it happened to this, you know, you get 30, 40 minutes in, you're like, this is so great, I love these guys. And then you're like, oh fuck, I have to watch them die now. And like, I just love those moments. And I think that comes from being an empathetic storyteller and really caring about your characters.
Oddly, I noticed something as well on that topic. So, have you seen the Australian horror movie Wolf Creek from 2003?
Haven't. It has been very high on my list, but I will watch.
Yeah, they establish and they really set up like the three backpackers that you really care about them. And I think that honestly, this was an Easter egg in the film. The opening song for Wolf Creek is an Australian band called Daddy Cool from the 70s called Eagle Rock, and they actually play it in Bring Her Back when they're partying. When Laura basically is like, do you guys want to get fucked up? And I'm like, I swear to God, that's like an Easter egg for Wolf Creek.
It has to be.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, totally. Wolf Creek was huge. Like that was Wolf Creek. I think even before these guys, that's like the biggest Australian horror movie of the last like 30 years,
Yep.
easily.
Yep.
So that's totally got to be an Easter egg. That's
Yeah.
really cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was just something to me because like that was the song that was played on the Golden Oldies station when I was a kid.
Mm.
It's just like a part of Australian culture, and it was like recontextualized opening Wolf Creek, and then in this scene in Bring Her Back, they play that song, and I'm like, that's got to be a connection. Like that's got to be a little bit of a homage or an Easter egg to that film because again, it establishes and you really care about these backpackers. So when they start to be killed, you really don't want that happening to them because it makes it all the more devastating in horror when you actually care about the characters. In a slasher film where they're all, taking their tops off and running around naked, you're like, oh yeah, they're gonna die. Or like Franklin in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, he's so annoying that when he gets killed, you're like, yay!
Which has its place, I mean,
Yes.
like they're, it's all right to go to see a film for cool kills and for boobies and for whatever, but this isn't a movie like this, or is not that. This is a different animal. It's not there just for kills, which I think then makes either the kills or the violent parts and the gory parts, which many of them are aimed at kids, which also is something that can be a little triggering for people. If you haven't seen this and you are have a sensitivity to something like that, I would say maybe have somebody see it first and have them explain it to you or something like that.
Yeah.
Because it can certainly be triggering because a lot of the violence is towards people under 21.
Yeah.
Which
yeah.
Why don't we talk about that scene?
Mm.
Because that's like
Are we talking about
that's the scene.
Well, there's two scenes. There's two of that scene.
Yeah.
There's two.
Okay. We'll talk about
first
the first.
let's
yeah.
talk about Ollie for a second because
Ollie, that's right.
we first meet him again in that whole opening scene, the whole introduction scene when we meet Laura. The first thing she says is close the door, you let the cat out, which I also want to ask everyone about that cat a little bit later. The cat gets out and we see that the cat gets down in the pool, and that's how we're introduced to Ollie in the pool, which is where this final ritual would be taking place. And we're not quite sure, is he trying to strangle the cat? Is he trying to, we don't know. I have some theories about that, which I'll go to towards the end because they make a constant big deal of the cat trying to escape.
Yeah.
But I'll go into that later. So and then the thing I brought up earlier, we see in Ollie has now, much like the first woman in the opening sequence of that ritualistic VHS tape, he has a very similar birthmark under his eye. Mm. I don't know exactly what that means. I don't know if he got kidnapped because of that mark, if he has some sort of mark of I don't want to say a mark of a beast, but mark of someone that is capable of being possessed or something like that, which is, I don't know. But I did notice almost right away that they had very similar birthmarks under their eyes. What I didn't notice, and I haven't been able to look up, I don't know if when Andy goes back to Wendy at the police station and he sees the missing kid poster of Connor Bird, who is Ollie's real name. I don't know if that picture, I don't remember if that picture had the actual.
No, I don't think it did.
Yeah, so I'm kind of wondering if that's, again, a suggestion of something supernatural. Because, again, that's ambiguous, too. Yeah. The supernatural elements of the film is kind of ambiguous. And they don't fully.
I think it's totally ambiguous.
Yeah, but at the same time, they don't fully have an impact on the outcome of the film.
Ollie is visibly pregnant with something.
I just took it as he just kept eating. But yeah, You know, yeah. Again, I don't know, and that's something I definitely want to discuss as time goes through. But so yeah, so that's and we know that he's locked up in his room constantly whenever Laura is gone. He's not allowed out. We notice that there's this weird kind of white chalk outline around the house, much like a lot of you know, ritualistic satanic things that don't allow things to pass a circle of salt. Is it salt? Am I getting that correct? Yeah, there's always
Yeah.
It's always like chalk or something, I think. Salt,
Yeah.
it does, you know, salt wouldn't quite look
No, I
like
don't
that.
think it was salt, but I'm just saying I think it's a visual reference to that sort of
Yeah,
circle
totally.
Yeah.
that something demonic would not be allowed to pass. And we see that when he tries to pass, he freaks out.
Yeah. I also found the empty pool stand that he was standing in very symbolic as well, because you know, the daughter had died in that pool.
Right.
So I feel like maybe that's representing almost how empty Laura's life now is
Yeah,
with that empty pool. I just found it a very eerie image.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
An empty pool is always a little creepy to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So now let's
So
talk
then-
about that scene. Yeah.
Yeah, so Andy, the brother, is like trying to do the brother thing and feed Ollie, who hasn't eaten the whole damn time. So he lets him out, and he's chopping up a melon, and he offers him the melon. You know, albeit the worst way you can offer a child a melon.
That was like,
Just
it's like, why would you do that in the first place?
like that is one of the worst ways you could offer a child. But
Very movie thing.
we're not gonna. I'll give them that. I'll give the filmmakers that. I'll let them slide on that one.
Yeah, it's a very movie thing, and it's something I've seen in movies too.
Yeah.
Like you've seen people stick something on the end of a knife and hand it to the end, and it's like, why would you do that? It's so, especially to an 8-year-old child,
Yeah.
you know.
And then he does something I've never seen in a movie before, which is Andy turns his back and he starts gnawing on the knife.
Yeah.
Auditorily is one of the worst things I've ever heard.
Yeah.
When it cuts to him, it's one of the worst things I've ever seen. I was physically cringing. I was curled in a ball. I've never done that in a theater before. I was like, I'm sure Jake has like 5 finger marks in his shoulder from when I was gripping onto him. It was gnarly, dude. And then where does he go? How does that conclude? I don't even remember. I was looking.
I think he ultimately gets the knife from him.
He
That's
he bites it, the knife goes in, and it starts cutting through.
Yeah.
And he has to literally pull because he's holding it in.
Yeah.
So he's got to actually yank it out of of his mouth.
Yeah. Which is just, I mean.
Lynn did the same thing we watched. She totally curled up, closed her eyes, and turned away, and she wouldn't. And those are the moments where I literally go, "Oh yes!" And I like lean forward. I'm like, "Oh, give me more of this."
I did have that moment, and I'll explain in a second what my moment for that was. Yeah, because what I'll give the Philippus, they're so good at like violence. You know, they know how to get a beat, whether it's with sound design and staging, to just feel impactful and real. Between that, or if it's, you know, the girl slamming her head into the table and talk to me, or the mother
Ollie slamming his table,
head into the table. Sally Hawkins punching the kid in halfway through. You know, it's just, they get it to feel so real and so impactful in a way that's gets under your skin, man.
Yeah. So, first phobia. When I was a little kid, my uncle and I were I don't know where I was. I think it was either at my grandfather's farm or something like that. And my uncle was there, and he was eating a mango with a knife. And he was cutting it and putting it in his mouth, cutting it and putting it in his mouth. And I thought, wow, that was so cool. So when he left, I tried that. I tried cutting it, and I stuck the knife in my mouth with the mango, and that's exactly. I sliced this part of my tongue, and I cut my gum. And I was probably 5 or 6 years old. So when I saw that, I freaked out because I was like, you know, I've never put a knife in my mouth since. And so yeah, that was my first phobia. I'll get to the other one next.
So we say, why would you do that? Please, this
Yeah.
is why you would do it. Because you're a
I
stupid kid.
never
That's
was.
why.
I never was
'Cause dumb
close to what
kid.
I would do it. Yeah, I was just like, I was more like, oh my god, I went through that. I've been through that.
But yeah, so then I'm gonna get to my moment that made me sit forward and go, "This is fucking awesome." He brings the Ollie out to try to get him some medical attention. Just as Sally Hawkins is coming back, the kid like has a seizure of some kind, which I'm guessing is like the implication is that it stepping outside of that circle
Mhm.
broke whatever hold it was.
Yeah.
So then Sally Hawkins comes in, brings him upstairs. This was the moment that made me sit forward, which is Ollie is now verbal. He's screaming. He's talking about where am I? What's going on? You're still seeing the blood in the cut up face.
Mhm.
You've got the VHS tape going on. And then Sally Hawkins cranks the Veronicas untouched at
Yeah.
full volume to high. I was like, that is a perfect song to have picked. One, a great Australian pop song. Two, great song on its own. And then to be using that in this chaotic moment to add to it was just hilarious, disturbing. Like, it was just like a perfect moment that I was like, I sat forward in my chair. I'm like, that's going to be an all-time needle drop for me now.
I also thought it was interesting when Laura first describes how he looks to the girl. She's like, he has long curly red hair,
Yes,
like
yes.
dangling a carrot right in front of her nose, because that's the actual truth, is he does have that long red hair. At first I'm like, why would you lie like that? But it's interesting that there was an honesty in that lie.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely, and certainly and sneaking a foreshadowing thing underneath us, because that was the first implication. The second, I mean, the first bit of information. The second was when right before he did bite down on the knife, he wrote the word bird.
Yes.
You know, and we're like, okay, what the fuck does bird mean? You know what I mean? Like, all right, and then you realize his name is Connor Bird, and he had long red hair.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
But all of the little things Laura was doing along the way, like, you know, something's off with her, but you're like, what is her deal? Like, you know, when she snips off the dad's hair at the funeral home
Right.
and puts that in a little bag, and the way that she kisses the corpse as well. And another thing as well is she says, you know, I don't know if you believe it, but the soul can actually stay in the body for 4 months after they die. And you know, now that I'm thinking, it's like maybe the daughter died not that long ago.
Right, exactly. Oh,
Yeah, 'cause, like,
I didn't think of that, but you're right. That might have
Yeah.
been like,
I was wondering how
Yes.
long it had been since the daughter had died. Like, what was that time frame?
Yeah,
I don't think it was totally clear, but I do think that was the foreshadowing of it.
I think it's
That
a
it's within the
short.
last 4 months.
I think initially you're supposed to think it's like years or something,
Yeah,
but
I totally got that feeling.
yeah, and
Yeah.
that. But I think when you look at like Ollie's been missing for like 2 weeks, you know, and the thing with the soul being in the body for 4 months, and
or that
you know,
she's frozen.
yeah, you
right?
add
Like,
up all these
Are you trying to,
pieces.
you know, is it like when you freeze a pork chop, you try to keep it, you know, fresh
Yeah.
for a period of time.
Well, didn't they say like she worked for the child services as well?
Right.
Yes.
Didn't they like they said that she left, and I don't remember for sure, but didn't they? I feel like they said she left like a year ago or something. Like she left a while ago, or at least it implied that she'd been gone from that for a while, and that I think was the connection that I made. Oh, okay. Obviously, whenever she left, that's when her daughter. She must have left at that point in time, you
Right.
know, because now she's going down this crazy rabbit hole of you know, bringing her daughter back, and I think that's what said to me, okay, this has to have been like a year ago. But exactly that, I didn't even catch that connection of the body, the soul sitting in the body for 4 months. Like, yes, this must all be within the last like month or so.
Right.
Or maybe she froze the daughter before the 4 months and thought maybe that was preserving the soul and the body. But I tend to think it's more something recent, just by the
Yeah.
way the other
I
thing.
can actually find out exactly how long it's been.
You gonna text the Philippos and ask them?
I mean,
Yeah.
I have right on speed dial.
Right
So
on it. That's what it is. It's
Have you guys been
it's the brother thing. You guys got that
It's
connection.
just the brother director thing. We're in a
That's
chat.
you know, it's funny you said that too. That because we did this. You said last show we did twins.
Yeah.
In that.
Mhm.
Before that, we covered Cuckoo together.
Yes,
That's
Which is
right.
also another brother sister.
yes.
This seems to be our thing.
We
Yeah.
got to keep doing it. We got to keep
Yep.
sibling
Yes.
love going.
Exactly.
No, have
Well-
you guys been following the ARG that they've been doing?
No.
So
No.
you can go, I think, oh fuck, I have to look it up. I think it's like blackrabbit.com or something. I'll put in the link below and I'll text it to you guys. You can visit the website where she bought those tapes.
Oh,
And it's like this dark web, like eBay. You can find other items from some of the YouTube channels. You can find the hand from Talk to Me. But in the comment section is I forget the name of the dog, but it's like Poo Poo or whatever is her code name. So you can literally track her comments along this website and how long she's been
Oh, jeez.
researching it and all
Right.
of these things.
okay.
You can go in and there's like you can watch some of the tapes and get clues from that. And I've been doing a deep dive on this because it's like
I listened to an interview with them and they talked about they happened to mention the interviewer mentioned like, oh, what they're doing with the advertising and all this, and they were like, oh man, yeah, it's crazy. So, and I had no idea what they were talking about because they weren't specific. They just were saying the advertising that they're doing and all this. They have nothing to do with that.
really
That's all A24 doing it.
Oh,
okay.
wow.
Because
And they said they were like, oh, we're totally out of this. Like, it's so cool the things that they're doing. They're like, maybe our next movie, we got to think ahead while we're writing it. What can we do for that type of marketing? You know, but they never actually mentioned what the marketing was. So I didn't know what they were talking. They kind of got a little bit into how A24 does things. And they were like saying how artist forward they are, and that, like they didn't do the poster art. They didn't do any of the advertising. They like A24 has a bunch of artists that they go to and they give them the movie and they give them all stills and everything. Like, so for the poster, they had a bunch of different artists do different poster art. And when they saw that one, they were like, that's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And that's what they chose, you know? So it seems like that's how A24 does that. So they if the filmmakers aren't, they said they're part of the whole thing. Like they said, everything comes to them and they get to approve it or say yes or no to it all, or, oh, maybe we do more of this, maybe, but that is all A24 doing it.
Wow.
They keep them involved in the process, but they're not actually themselves doing it, like as opposed to how we're used to, where we're our films where we have to do everything. There's no one who's going to make a poster for us. There's nobody who's going to make trailers. There's nobody who's going to create that sort of ARG style advertising, and we all have to do that ourselves. So that's pretty cool to hear that A24 actually does that, finds the artists to do that, and brings them in from all different like disciplines of art to figure out how can we market this that works best for the film, and then keep the filmmakers involved as well, because that's another big part of distribution. A lot of the time, once you have distribution, that's it, you're cut off, and the studio does what they're going to do. So sometimes they change the name, they change the poster, they do a whole, and you have almost no say in any of it, because they're very much like, well, no, we know what we're doing, we know how to sell movies, you go make it and we sell it, and then you show up to premieres and, oh yeah, I didn't have anything to do with that, but that was pretty cool, I guess. You know,
Right.
I liked hearing that they're very that they keep it very artistic.
and I love knowing that because it's clear that they're then artist forward, because as I was looking into it, the Philippus before they went Hollywood had done an ARG about like a missing girl and all this stuff, and people thought it was real and whatever. This loops into that. They use imagery from that in this.
Probably why they did it then, knowing that they did it before. That's
Yeah.
probably why they knew that their fans would already be open to this.
No, it's perfect marketing. And look, I have not been a fan of the Philippus, longer than Talk to Me. I know they
No,
have.
I no idea that they had a big
had
YouTube
no
channel. I
idea.
literally found this out like in the interviews I've been listening to this week.
Yeah.
The
No idea.
But now I'm gonna be fans forever. And these ARGs, I love shit like this.
The poster's interesting as well because it's not a little girl on the poster. So you're like, why is there this creepy looking little boy on the poster when it's saying bring her back? And I think that that's also something really intriguing about it because
Yeah.
that's essentially kind of a host to bring her back.
Right.
But yeah, it's just an interesting poster, but you don't get a lot of plot until hindsight.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I love all like I was trying to see if I could go see it again before we did this, but I'm definitely gonna try to go see it in the next few days again. It's just it's that rare movie that works for me from beginning to end. You know, it's exactly the type of movie I love to watch, the exact type of movie I want to try to make one day, you know, the exact perfect casting, perfect storytelling. It's just it works for me on every level. Same with Sinners.
Yeah. I just actually want to ask Beck a question because
Yeah.
you are from Australia.
Yeah.
Is that a thing when you kiss a corpse on the lips? Is that like a thing?
No!
Oh, okay.
No, no, when she did that, like everything Laura did throughout that movie leading up to what she's truly
Okay.
trying to do just made me squirm. And I said when she, said, was encouraging them to kiss the corpse and then she
Yeah.
like steals the hair and then the stuff with the urine later on was really creepy and just,
Oh my
ugh.
God. Yeah.
But no, we don't, that's not an Australian thing. That is a
Good.
very,
All right. That
very crazy.
that cancels out my follow-up question.
The
Okay.
level of horrified that she just exhibited there.
If you're
Yeah.
only listening to this on audio, you'd think somebody was trying to kill Beth. The level of horror she just exhibited.
Her face matched that too. Like that was totally.
Yeah. Just shock and horror. Um,
Kissing a corpse too. I couldn't imagine it's the most healthy thing to do.
no,
No,
I don't.
I mean, at that
no
point in
part
time,
of
it's
me,
mostly wax over the skin.
but
still,
I
yeah.
still, I don't.
I'm not kissing a corpse.
Yeah.
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 Everything about her was so like I don't get a physical like hatred watching a movie often. You know, that's like another rare thing to occur for me. Watching this every single time she was on screen, I was like, please God, cut away from her. I'm like, I love Sally Hawkins. Like she's an incredible actor. She's so lovable. But in this part,
Well, that's indicative
she's
of her
so
ability,
evil and
yeah.
twisted. And
Yeah.
so like every action is so manipulative. And you could literally I would love, because I'm sure somebody will do this at some point. If you wanted to teach people how to look for a manipulative person, a person who's going to take advantage of you or like red flag, she literally, I'm almost certain, textbook hits every single one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like she
She's a
literally,
gaslighter as well.
yeah, gaslighting,
Yeah.
manipulation, lying, like it's like to a degree, and even like white lies. Like even though there is like an accuracy to it, you don't
Mhm.
necessarily know this going in. But the kid with the red hair, like getting a child to believe a lie like that
Yeah.
is like so small. It doesn't even seem like a thing, but it's such a huge red flag. And like literally the manipulator playbook to a T.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's so.
And I think that's a big part of the fact that she is a therapist,
yes,
Right.
you know, and she
Yeah,
does
right.
that, so she knows all of the signs. She
Mhm.
knows like a trail of what manipulation looks like,
Yeah.
so she knows how to do it,
Right.
step by step by step, how to manipulate somebody. And the fact that she was taken back by the fact that the brother had to stay with them as well. This was going to be a whole lot easier for her.
Right.
You know, I feel like it would have been a whole lot easier for her to go through this. The brother was really like, he was the wrench in the gears that kind of slowed things down. Now she had to manipulate two of them, and she had to kind of, change her gameplay up, because now we suddenly have somebody in the house who can see what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
So she's got to find ways not just to manipulate him, but to manipulate him and get him out of the house,
Right.
and physically get him into a different space
Right.
and away, because the little girl, she could do whatever she wants, and the little girl can't see what's happening.
Yeah.
So Ollie, like you said, Ollie's got curly hair, but he doesn't.
Right.
And the brother is like, he thinks it's weird, but at first he's okay. Why? He thinks that she's just saying it like maybe Ollie did that to himself.
Mhm.
Like maybe Ollie cut his own hair, and she, well, no, he has red curly hair. The brother thought it was weird that but he took it as a moment where she's trying to not scare the little girl, and that's how that's how the brother saw it, and and a lot, and I feel like a lot of her behavior, he took it that way. And that really falls that level of gaslighting that she's doing to him, where even he's questioning what he's seeing.
Right.
It's clearly in front of him what she's doing, but he's questioning it because she's so damn good at it.
Right. Because this is a person who has control issues from the get-go. So when and I've seen this happen. Someone with control issues, if they have a death of someone close to them, that's what's the beginning of them spiraling out of control, because they had no control over that. So now she is trying, like it's what you said, man. She's now trying to, because she has the skills to put these control mechanisms back into place, and systematically. It's really, you can watch. It's like systematically starts the gaslighting effect of getting Andy out of there, or getting Piper groomed to be a sacrificial lamb, and to all these things that we don't even realize what's happening at first, and you're right. And it's because, like, the only reason why Andy notices anything is because almost by accident sometimes, that, like when he happens to notice Ollie and Laura going into the shed, and that the shed's like pretty much bolted up for no apparent reason. It's a shed, so yeah, it's for me, that was a great cinematic display of what someone who has control issues has when they fall out of control.
Yeah.
And a lot of psychologists and psychiatrists also tend to be very fundamentally flawed human beings, and their profession, through helping people understand themselves, I think that they try to seek to understand themselves in the process. Like even in Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal Lecter is a psychiatrist.
Right.
And he's even more deranged than, any of the other characters in the film, even more so than Buffalo Bill.
Yeah.
God knows some of the people I know who went to get psych degrees from when I was growing up. Definitely would not trust them.
There's a great old saying that says, "Physician, heal thyself." But I've always taken that not to be medical physicians. I've always seen that to be people who are psychiatrists, psychologists, therapists. And
I don't want to.
Right, I know. I'm not down
the whole profession.
No, I'm not saying
not all, but
saying every therapist is a serial killer. I'm just saying it's easy that if you are out of control to go into that section of the business.
And I know
I just want to make that clear.
Yeah. And there's somebody I know who loved this movie, gave it a 5 stars, and is a social worker, and was like, "Oh my God, they should have been doing so much more to take care of these kids," know. And so there are good social workers out there. I'm not.
But the reality is that the woman Wendy, who works at the precinct, knew Laura for 10 years. And she said, "I've known her for 10 years." So why wouldn't she hand her over?
That's how manipulators work.
Right, that's what I'm saying, though. But like, I'm talking about your friend who was saying,
I know,
who was saying, why haven't we seen those things? They weren't there.
They're not. They weren't sort of critiquing it.
You're predisposed to trust certain people already.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
She's already predisposed to trust her, so why wouldn't I? So when he starts questioning her, when he starts questioning and the other woman's like, "What? No, you're the troubled kid, not her."
Right.
And to that point too, like you said, that the shed is all locked up, and as the audience, you are now led to believe that it's locked up to keep Andy out.
Mm-hmm.
But it's locked up to keep Ollie out.
Right.
It would have been locked up regardless of whether Andy was there or not. The lock was because Ollie is trying to get in there.
Yeah.
And I think that leads to what he keeps doing with the cat.
Right.
I'm not saying it yet because we're not at that point yet of the film.
Right.
we're not at that discussion yet. But I think that's what those little things, that the only things that slowed Andy down in discovering things are the safeguards that she put in place to stop Ollie.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
We can sort of jump around if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. But to your point, the reality is these stumbling blocks for Andy actually work for Laura. Like up until up until that one little moment in the pool, which we will get to, her plan actually goes off essentially
Yeah.
once she gets her life, once she gets the control back and puts the mechanisms back into place, it pretty much goes off
Yeah.
without a hitch. It wasn't until Wendy and Andy come back that things start to fall apart, and you see the blood on her hand or whatever, But like at one point, she's watching the VHS tapes with Piper in the room, knowing full well she has no idea, what she's.
And that was the one part that actually annoyed me of the movie, really bothered the hell out of me, because it was just something that was done for the sake of the story and not for everything else. Like you said, we're going down the checklist of manipulation,
Right.
But then Andy goes to what's her name, Wendy?
Right.
Yes.
He goes to her and he tells her that this kidnapped child is in the house.
Right.
And he's like, I need to take you there so you can see that this is the kid. And at the moment that he tells her that, there is a police officer sitting in the room.
Yeah.
So the fact that the cop didn't go back with them as well bothered the hell out of me. And I said, that was just done for the script, because there's no way in hell a social worker who's going to a house, it doesn't matter whether she believes it's there or not.
Right. There's a protocol. There's a certain protocol.
Yes, her job is, I have to investigate this. And she even said that when she gets there, well, he made a complaint, so I have to do this. I don't believe him, but I have to look into this, But the complaint is that she's kidnapped a child that you are actively looking for. The fact that there's no cop next to her at that moment is like, okay, that was the first moment of the whole movie where I was like, shit, we're still watching a movie.
Right.
And that was, I think that was my only real complaint about the film. Like, you couldn't write around that. Like, you couldn't find another way of doing. Like, we're gonna kill her anyway. Kill the cop too, then. That was the only.
The car could kill 3 people if you kill 4.
Exactly. You kill. Everybody's fucking dying around you. She didn't seem to have a problem murdering anybody.
Right.
I felt like the cop was just one thing. Like, you made it a little too convenient for her. That was my only complaint to the movie. And at that moment, I was to say it later, but like we already brought it up, and it's just gonna eat at the front of my brain till I say it.
I wouldn't be surprised if they might have had that in the script, and the producer somewhere went, cop standing there, 3 figures, cop standing there talking, 4 figures a day. That means you have to pay him X amount more by talking. You have to pay him X amount more to bring him to the set of the house. So they might have just gone, well, that's an extra, few dollars we don't need to spend if we can just cut that out. Because I've heard some horror directors talk about, especially, in single location horror like this, where it's like, oh, we had a part written where they talked, and if they didn't talk, we could cut a 0 at the end of their paycheck, and whether that's right or not or whatever, but sometimes you got to cut corners to save money. So I wouldn't be surprised if that ended up being like a thing like that, where they were like, this is just to save us money.
Yeah,
it's possible.
Yeah, I 100% see where you're coming from, though.
No, I agree with you for sure. Yeah. And now that you've pointed out, I might not have even noticed that.
Right, I didn't think of it. I didn't really think of it until you said something again. Because
so they was sitting in the car driving there. I'm like, where's the cop?
Yeah,
the cop was just right there. The cop was there ready to throw the kid out.
Right.
I'm like, where? As soon as they're driving, I'm like, why is there no police car following them?
Right.
Like that's just the filmmaker in me I can't completely separate myself when I'm watching a movie. There's always something that I find myself sometimes in some scenes, like this scene is really nice, and I start watching the edges of the scene, trying to see where they put the light. Like, how did they hide the light, and how do watching the edit, what are they cutting around? I do that all the time. And it's in my head. So sometimes the story does that, especially the fact that I was so immersed in it. It really bothered me when it pulled me out, because it was the first like real mistake I noticed in the film, because everything else was so like seamlessly done.
Right.
It was the first moment. And for it to be literally like 3/4 of the way through the movie already, it's like, I'm just nitpicking at that point.
Right,
You know,
It's funny you brought up lighting because that is like the only thing that I've studied that I can't unlook at when I'm watching a movie.
Mm.
Like screenwriting, I can throw all that away. I'm not going like, ooh, they hit this beat, this is where I think we're going next. Cinematography, even like generally, like whether a camera's moving here or there, I can let that pass. I can enjoy it. Editing, same way. Lighting is the only one where I go, okay, they've got a key coming from over here. They've got a backlight hitting like the side of the face. It's like that's the only thing that I really have not been able to turn off ever since.
I watched a breakdown of somebody. There was a scene from Sinners in the cabin, and I watched the guy broke down the lighting, and I said, "No, you're wrong. That's not what they did." And then watched him because I guess it was some sort of live, because he ended up watching his own, as he's talking, he starts to realize where he's wrong.
Yeah.
And he's like, wait, no, maybe that was probably just about, it's like, no, that was a single light. They used, it was a one thing. They just had like one diffused light overhead, and they actually used the sunlight to their advantage to light the rest of it. He's like, well, there's a thing over here. I'm like, nope, that's bounced off of that. And no, that light is bounced off of that. That's coming through and I'm like, no, you're wrong. He's breaking it down like there's like 3 lights in there. Like, no, there's only one. And by the end of it, he realized himself, maybe it is only one light. I'm like, yes, it's just one. Because it's this natural light. It's like they had enough windows. They built the cabin in such a way that it would work to light from all sides. So I do the same thing. I watch it, and then I watch the camera when they cut the camera, because like, oh, there's a light right there.
Yeah.
Like as we're turning here, that's where the light has to be. Physically had to be right there because it wouldn't have reached the actors otherwise. And that's where the camera had to stop and cut to the other side.
Right.
It's so funny because when I started studying, I sort of do this with everything I study, but I noticed it when I was lighting. It's like, would look at behind the scenes photos and you'd be like, okay, indie film set, you've got one can light from Target or Home Depot or whatever in the corner. That's all you got. Looks like shit. You go to like the Avengers, you've got 500 lights, you've got all this rig, and it looks all right. It looks Hollywood or whatever. Then you go over that curve and you're like, Roger Deakins, one can light from Home Depot, looks gorgeous. And I'm like, okay, so if we're both start on either end of this, you've got the same amount of equipment. How do I bypass this and go right to that? And it's like,
it's all about knowing how to use the equipment rather than the equipment you have. And that's what the curve is.
Yeah.
Up at the top of that curve, you learn how things are, and then you learn to use the lighting in the storytelling as well.
Yes, exactly.
And that's what gives you that ability to do that.
Yeah, a good friend of mine produces, like Dan, produces a lot of commercials and all these, and he said he worked once with Jordan Cronenweth, and he said normally like a DP will come in like the night before and pre-light and do all these things. He said Jordan and his crew strolled in literally 45 minutes before they were supposed to shoot and were ready at 45 minutes. And he said it looked fucking amazing. Yeah. So you're right. It depends on your skill level of understanding what lighting is. And the reason why I brought that up is because I'm going to actually bring her back, because the I keep saying the Russo brothers, the Filippo brothers, were talking about the design of the house, and everything that's downstairs and outside are all practical. They found a house that it took them a long time to find a house that had that type of pool. They had to pull the fences out and all that stuff just to make it look the way it looked. But everything upstairs are all sets, so they had to make all of that look, because there are very few sunny days in the movie. It's all overcast. It's all grim. And
it rains through the whole second half of the movie.
Yeah, it rains all half of the movie, and all of that has to come in the practical sets. Mm-hmm. But they also said that an interesting thing in terms of production design is that the entire front of the house, there's almost no windows, because if somebody pulls up, they can't really see what's going on, which is the opposite of the back of the house, because every part of it overlooks the pool.
Yeah.
And so it's an interesting bit of design that clearly it's not like Laura built the house herself, but it's more of a, a subliminal thing that your audience might not even notice right away, but
I
get.
didn't actually notice at the front of the house is that I can't even picture the
Yeah,
front of the house to
yeah,
know, you know.
they barely even shoot the front of the house,
Yeah.
you know. But almost every window, like every room that's faced the pool, it's all floor to ceiling. It's like it's
Big
Yeah.
sliding glass doors and all this. Everything overlooks the pool.
And the whole the layout of the land is the same way too, because when you come up, almost feels like you're driving through. When they come up, like they're driving, almost feels like you're driving through a forest
Right.
to get to this house, and suddenly there's a house. Like
Right.
this line, it's this little path, and then suddenly house, and then even when they do the overhead shot, when you see the white circle, how far back the white circle goes. Like it's right in the front of the house. The
Right.
white circle's right to the front, but then it's huge in the back, like way farther beyond the property line,
Right. Right.
And so
That
I
house
think
is not in the center of that circle.
not even close,
Yeah.
not even close. And I think that's part of it as well. That whole, the back is open, but the front is closed off. It's just trying to keep people, keeping some people from coming in and others from getting out, because the front would be the main entrance. So that makes sense that the front of the house would have no windows, because everything seems to be designed where you can't see what's happening inside from the front.
Right.
If you were in the back, you could come from half a mile back,
Yeah.
and it's just as basically like an open space, even beyond the pool. It just seems almost like there's like a field behind it,
Right.
and then the front is just trees.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And even that comes into play too when Piper tries to escape.
Mhm.
It's like she actually kind of runs the wrong way.
Yeah, she goes exactly
the back where there is, you got to get to that border, that white line border,
Yeah.
Before you cross over. So yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. What else?
So where are we at? What part were we up to?
I want to talk a little bit about this cat because I don't know what it is. And I can't figure out if it means something more than it is or if it's just a cat. But
I took it as the metaphor of 9 lives.
I took it as a metaphor of Ollie, whatever was possessing Ollie, trying to leave.
Mm.
But I don't know if that's good. So I open that discussion because which is always a good thing for me. If something is sort of ambiguous and it does open a discussion as to what something means, I think I always take that as, in terms of films like this, that it may have been thought out to the point where it should be open for discussion. And there are some films that aren't particularly very good where it's just clear they didn't think it through. But I feel as though nothing was not thought through in this film, outside of a cop coming to the house with the social. But like,
There
what
is-
are your thoughts on? Yeah, like, so you thought it represented 9 lives.
I did want to research into it, and I didn't actually get a chance to. They did say that it is an angel. It's not a demon. So it's not actually possessed by a demon. It is an angel and it's in the script. The angel's name is Tari.
Hmm.
And they said it is a real angel, and that the birthmark is a very specific design.
Yeah, I know the brothers said they spent some time.
Yeah. I just didn't get a chance to really look into the lore of all that and what it is, but it is based on a real angel, and whatever the design of the birthmark is a specific symbol. And they said it does have meaning behind it, but they didn't want to expound it. They you can research it yourself and look it up, so I didn't get a chance to look into it. And that's usually that's the thing that I love to deep dive into. I just didn't get an opportunity to.
Right.
I also thought as well, because like Sally Hawkins, the way that she dresses and everything kind of is that kooky aunt. And her being so concerned about the cat, I also think plays into that trope of like kooky aunt, crazy cat lady, and that element being brought to it as well, so that she's appearing to the children as an eccentric, but not evil.
Right.
Yes.
Even though she is evil.
Right.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. And I saw something somewhere that at one point, one of the when the cat gets out for the first time, goes down the pool, and it's how we are introduced to Ollie. I didn't necessarily get this, but someone said that he was trying to strangle the cat. Didn't
Mhm.
seem that way. I think it just seemed that he was just sort of awkwardly trying to connect with it, and the cat was having no part of it and just scratching him up, which for me sort of conveyed that one, he's so far gone that he's not even feeling this cat scratching him up, which is kind of a precursor because he doesn't show really any pain later when he's chewing on the knife. So I'm wondering. I don't know if what connection there is there. I was just genuinely curious as to what people thought about this fucking cat, because he was pretty much ubiquitous throughout the whole film.
Mhm.
You know,
It was the first image you saw in the marketing too. It was
Right.
like, was that cat?
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I thought based on the ending or what we find out later in the movie, I thought I just my thought went back. I said, okay, so Ollie's been trying to eat the cat the whole time.
right,
That's just I just took it as that. It's like, okay, Ollie was trying, like they're trying to make it look like he's trying to strangle the cat,
right.
as though like he's a crazy kid and he's going to try and kill the cat. But in hindsight, but once you get to the end, like, oh, Ollie's trying to eat the cat, because it's supposed to eat the body,
Yeah.
and at some point she keeps saying, no, not yet, no, not yet,
Yeah.
like he keeps
Oh,
trying to eat things because
That's
he's
it.
hungry.
That's great. Yeah,
Well, part of the ritual, as I saw on that website, is you have to starve it out for 3 days.
Yeah.
Or whatever she's doing to that kid.
Yeah.
Part of that process is you've got to starve them out for 3 days.
Yeah. And that's why she keeps stopping him from eating.
right.
And I think that kind of adds to some of Ollie's defiance a little bit. That again, in hindsight, you realize what it is because he just fed him some cantaloupe. So
Yeah.
he actually did eat something.
Right.
And within a short time, Ollie's outside and he kind of wakes up a little bit. Not like cognitively, but he becomes a little bit more animated than he was before. Most of the time, Ollie's very stoic, walking slowly. And suddenly, he starts becoming a little bit more animated because now he's got food for the first time in a. And then he tries to eat the knife. He tries to eat the table. And that's why I look. Okay, he was trying to eat the cat too.
Right.
And it was just too early to eat the cat. And I also feel again, it's supposed to eat the body. What if he ate the cat? Would he have swapped with the cat then?
Oh,
Because it's another.
Or something just to kind of clear everything out. Like when you go in for surgery, you can't eat for a few days. Maybe
No, it's exactly like that. Yeah.
another living soul, like a cat. Yeah.
Yeah. So and part of the ritual she's got to eat the body. He's got to consume the old body, then you kill the other, and then so she can swap into the new body. So it's like if he had eaten the cat, would that be the thing that it consumed, and how would that like it wouldn't apply to her daughter anymore.
Right. Because also cats, with both things like dark sciences or black masses or light sciences and spiritual religious stuff, cats are quite prevalent.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another reason why what piqued my curiosity of the cat's presence in the film.
It would have been funny though if he ate the cat and it would transfer the cat's soul into
Right.
Transferred all 9 lives into
Yeah.
into the girl. Like
Oh.
that's it, and now there's just a frozen body for no reason. Like, wow.
That's a very dark Disney
it's
film.
the start of,
from
it's the
70s.
start of the Catwoman, the bad Halle Berry Catwoman.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's secretly a prequel to Catwoman. That's my YouTube clickbait video.
Yes.
How Bring Her Back.
Bring
is
Her Back.
secretly
Prequel to
a
Catwoman?
Catwoman.
Yeah. Oh god. I want to talk a little about the sound too, because
Sound
sound
design
is
is
yeah,
crazy.
because it's often we see Jake has a great, our other son has a great quote that he talks about all the time, that whenever you see something win, say, like best cinematography, most people who don't understand how cinematography usually vote for the most cinematography, you know. And here, this is a great masterclass in not only great sound, but sound that is very specific to this film,
Yeah.
and very consciously directed at moving the story forward. You know, and the brothers also talk a lot about, so many times when you hear sound, it is designed for Piper.
Mhm.
You know, and so what would Piper experience even if she's not necessarily in the scene? You know, what are the sounds a person with visual impairment would pick up on versus what we take for granted? You know,
They
so-
talk about heightened hearing because usually when you lose one sense, the others become more powerful.
right, right. So to me, that was just, there's some really great moments, particularly in the pool at the end. And just pulling sound out just at the right moment,
Mhm.
which is not always easy to do without dropping all the sound out. But that moment when Piper is drowning and she does say, "Mama," you realize that she that's that one moment of strength that she has, that you realize that's the one thing that's going to save her.
Mm.
Because she essentially, well, up until that point, we're going, oh fuck, now Piper's going to drown, and Piper's going to die, and this woman's going to win, and that's the mean part of this. Yeah,
one of the things I love too is, like, it reminded me of Misery. One of the great sort of writing tropes I love is the cop in Misery who shows up and you go, save the day, man.
yeah,
He's coming to save the day. And then he
And he
gets
gets,
killed.
yeah.
And then it's like, oh, really? Anything could happen at this point.
right,
Yeah.
And not only did they do that twice, they did that with the social worker because you're like, oh, okay, she's going to die.
right.
Nobody's died in this movie so far. She's going to die. And then they double it down with Andy. And then when she's in the pool drowning, you're like, oh, she could die.
Right,
here.
I just sort of
She could,
I came to peace with the fact that this poor girl's going to die in a pool.
because I was watching
Yeah.
it and I was like, because Talk to Me, my memory of that movie is how fun it is. It's a very fun horror movie. And then when she was getting pushed into the pool, I was like, oh well, we have to have some sort of happy ending. And I remembered, I was like, oh, they don't do happy endings. Talk to Me, for however fun it was, did not have a happy ending.
Yeah.
It's a pretty dark, grim ending. That moment of like feeling like anything could happen, up to and including the darkest thing, was just another great moment. And I wanted to bring up something to Beck's point about the senses getting stronger. Something I love in writing, because when you think of screenwriting, you're really dealing with two senses, which is sight and sound. That's in screenwriting, that's all you really get to deal with. And I love that they made the effort, because it's so rare to pull off in film, of smell being integral, right? Like, it was the fact that she put on Andy's body spray before she hit her, so that she would go, all I experienced was the impact and the smell of him. Like, oh my God, the way that you could incorporate other senses that the audience can't experience, but that you could incorporate into the story was I thought, really outside the box thinking, and surprised me.
Yeah, I remember seeing an essay on what makes a great villain, and usually, what makes a great villain for a lot of times, I mean, there are various reasons, but one of the things that stuck out with me is that the villain is always ahead of you.
Yeah.
No matter what you're doing, and for Laura, that's sort of what's going on. She's ahead of everybody because she understands everyone's weaknesses. She understands that Piper can't see certain things, so of course she's going to use the abuse of the previous violent acts of Andy from when he was a kid against him, and the smell of the cologne or whatever it is, the deodorant.
Yeah.
Twofold: one, to make her think it, but also then to get Andy out of the picture. But ultimately, her motivations are to bring her back, and that ultimately becomes her downfall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
in that one word. In that moment, she believes that, oh shit, either this worked, or because I'm not sure. I don't remember, because again, I only saw it the one time. I don't remember it's because she felt it worked, or in that moment she realized what I'm doing is probably insane. With Piper.
I read it as she was like, she thought it worked.
Right.
And so there was like that moment of like, well, like now what? And she was able to use that to get out.
Right.
But yeah, let's dig into the ending a little, because it is, to put it lightly, a downer ending. Yeah, because Beck, you seem to have a really strong reaction to it.
Yeah, because ultimately that final shot of her holding her daughter's corpse in the pool, it encaptures the whole essence and her motivations, because her whole motivation for Laura is to bring her daughter back.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that, yeah, when she does finally say, mom, I think it almost just jolts her out of something, or she genuinely thought that she was able to do it. And I just found that final image so heartbreaking. And you almost, even though you hate Laura so much, you understand her desperation. And that grief can be this absolute monster, and it can destroy you, and it can, make you do things that you would never conceive of doing. And I just, yeah, that ending really got to me, because it's like, yeah, there's just such a desperate scream from her soul. It's like she just wants to have her back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I took the mama as her. You just said it snaps her out of it. I think it was the moment where she realized what she was doing.
Yeah.
That she, her daughter died, and now she's going to kill another child to bring her back. It's like you're just prepared. It's just another person dying as a result.
Or yet another child. I mean,
yes, yet another child. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I am fascinated about it. I've been thinking about this a lot. Again, it's so fascinating to me, and I God knows, I'll talk more in detail. Like, I feel like I'm dancing around it. This movie is dealing in a very similar pool of themes, of aesthetics, of things like that with the script that I'm writing now. But I've been thinking about how easily people are willing to sort of either ignore, become a participant in, or wave away violence towards others when it means safety for me. Right? When it means I get to sit in the mansion on the hill in a nice bed with nice shoes and food, but there's a kid down there that's starving. And I know that me being up here means that kid is suffering, and how willing we are to go along with that. And that it happens interpersonally, it happens politically, it happens with war, it happens with how we interact with each other on a daily basis. I've just been really trying to make sense of it, but you see that here with Laura, where she's willing to kidnap this child in Ollie. She's willing to put him through all of that. She's willing to kill Andy. She's willing to, for all we know, kill what's the
Piper.
Piper, because we don't know what happens to her if she does get inhabited by her daughter. Just to get her daughter back. And that's the thing that was both disturbing to me, but ultimately I think empathetic, that you were almost able to empathize with her despite this sort of horrific pathology, I think. Yeah.
I think it comes down to the through line of empathy.
Yeah.
Like you say, that sitting up on a hill while somebody is suffering at the bottom of the hill, how much of a direct line does your mind have in you being responsible for that person at the bottom? It's like, you say, okay, so it happens in the world, and it's more of a simple thing. Like, something like climate change.
Yes.
Climate change is a very kind of abstract thought. Like, how can you connect you and your personal actions to something as grand as climate change? And when you buy a 6-pack of beer and it's got that, that little the plastic ring on there, everyone pictures those images that we've all seen of a duck with that thing stuck around its neck, or how they find like whales in the ocean and they cut them open and they just plastic falls out. That's something like, I'm literally holding it. It's here. This is going to end up there. And you can mentally create that through line there, but you can't mentally make a through line to something like the aerosol in your can burning up the ozone layer, because that's not something you can physically connect to.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a matter of how abstract is that level of suffering to your level of happiness.
Holy shit.
And that's where the disconnect happens.
Yeah.
And that's what the mama was. It was the moment where she made a direct connection to her actions and the suffering of this child. Because up until this point, it was all about what she wanted to do. And up until this point, Piper was just a child. It was just a body. It was going to be the vessel for her daughter. She didn't make the direct connection that she actually has to kill this child first in order for her own daughter to come back. And that's when the through line of empathy kicked in, and she realized, this is a human being. This is someone else's daughter.
Yeah.
That I'm doing this to. Something did this to me, and now I'm doing it as well. That was the direct moment of what is the through line of your empathy from your actions to the consequences of them, and how close can you get yourself to it? As long as you're up on that mountain, the bottom of the mountain is not your concern until you walk the mile down that mountain and actually connect what you're doing to it, and realizing that, every time you flush your toilet, it runs down the mountain and it falls on it, until you actually see it doing that to the people below you. You don't make the connection.
Yeah. So this aspect of it, particularly what you're talking about, had reminded me of a story, and our friend Pat Devaney is going to love this. There's a great short story by Ursula K. Le Guin that it's called "The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas," or Omelas, depending on how you pronounce it. And it's really about this utopian village where people experience great bliss, and they and everything is fantastic, and there's nothing but happiness, and there's no suffering. But it's because there's a single child who's locked away in a basement, who brings in all of that suffering, who has to incur all of that suffering. And are people okay with that?
Well, to the point is, like, I think in the story, what they say is, like, when you reach a certain age, they bring you down, they show you this child and how tortured and brutalized it is, and you either have to make the choice that you're okay with that and stay in this town, or you're going to walk away and you're going to leave this utopia, but you can't, you sort of either have to live with that you are living this utopic life because of this child, or you walk away from it all. And
there are many stories that have taken inspiration from this, but this, I don't know if the brothers have read the story, but this is a little more literal. It's an actual child, in terms of Ollie, that's locked away. And are you, and you see a series of people who are making the choices to either walk away or to stay with stay with this. What are you okay with? And the final decision, like what you're talking about, Manny, is once she says the word mother or mommy,
that's kind of the farmer's mentality, where like a farmer they raise cows and they raise pigs, and then they slaughter them themselves. They know where their meat is coming from, and they take responsibility for that. But to most people, a hamburger is a thing that you buy in a little white package with plastic around it. There's no mental connection to the fact that a living being died to give you this, you know, and that's the disconnect that a lot of people have. And that's why you see, like, especially when you see people who were vegetarians from, like, as a child, like my niece decided at 9 years old she wanted to be a vegetarian,
Right.
because she saw a slaughterhouse video and it changed her. She's now about to be 18 years old and she's still strict vegetarian.
Right.
You know, because that affected her young, and exactly that. Somebody showed her the child in the cave that's suffering as a result
Right.
of the food on her plate, and she makes that connection every single day with everything she eats.
Right.
It'll never be severed because it was so formative for her at such a young age, you know. So it's exactly that farmer's mentality. I have a friend of mine, his family has a farm in the Dominican Republic, and I can remember when I think this was, what year was this? I think I don't know. I don't remember if Lindsay was with it or not. I don't know if she was with me or not. But I went to their house. They, Dominican family, big Dominican family. Fucking 10 brothers and uncles and 100 cousins. You go there. So New Year's is a party, and it's like a 2-3 day long party of like family members coming and going through the course of it. I remember being there, and someone walked in with a goat, like on a rope, just walked a goat in. And I was like, oh, okay, there's a goat in a apartment in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Interesting. And I walked, and I didn't even consider it. A little bit later, I said it, and I was, what's with the goat? They took the goat and they went into the bathroom, put it in the tub, and slaughtered it. And this is now the food that they're going to cook because they're farmers.
Right.
This is normal life for them. Yeah. Their mother, his mother gets little chicks around in January. She'll go to a farm and she'll buy little chicks and raise them. And that's Easter dinner.
Right.
That is a normal thing for them. And that kind of impressed on me too, where again, as a teenager, like, this is a thing that happens. Like, they're actually, this meat is coming from somewhere, I've never had to do it myself, but him, it doesn't bother him because that's just a farmer's life.
Yeah. Again, talking about, my first phobia about the knife thing on my grandfather's farm. I remember, again, when I was a little kid, and they thought it was hilarious because they brought a chicken out and they put a wash basin on him. And they said, just sit on the wash basin. And I'm like, okay. Because there were kids who were great, who grew up on that farm, that thought that was perfectly fine. But I was from New York, and I sit on the thing because my brain is going, oh, I guess I'm just sitting on a basin. Not thinking I'm holding the basin down as they come up with a machete and cut the fucking chicken's head off. I freak out, jump up the basin, and now I actually witness up close the old proverb of the old thing of a chicken running around with his head cut off, because that's what I'm witnessing at 6 years old.
That is the thing that happens.
Now that was not a phobia, but I will get into the other phobia because I wanted to talk a little bit about Ollie. And with Ollie, which I did not realize until earlier today, the actor playing the dad, the one that slides in the tub and hits his head. That's my phobia number 2, by the way, because when I was a little kid, I decided that I didn't want to take baths anymore. I didn't want to take bubble baths. I want to shower like my dad. So they were like, okay, you seem old enough, try it. Get in the shower. And the first thing I did was slide in the tub and bang my head in the shower.
You never stood up in a tub.
No, exactly. So that was phobia number 2. Oh, from that point forward, I always had bath mats in my tub. But that was phobia number 2. So both those phobias, I checked off both check boxes of phobias with this movie. But what I want to talk about was, in terms of Ollie, that actor who plays the dad is actually Ollie's father in real life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, both his parents are actors, which I think made me a little more at ease because the kind of stuff that this kid had to go through, he was sort of prepped by 2 experienced actors to get him through this safely.
And not
yeah.
to mention the kid is like a touring guitarist
That-
and Muay Thai fighter.
Yeah. He's like, what is it, 11?
Like a little 11-year-old doing like full contact
Yeah.
Muay Thai fights.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which when we were driving home, because you were saying this on the way home from the theater, my first thought was like, who's he fighting? How many other 11-year-old
Other
Muay Thai?
11-year-old Muay Thai
Yeah,
fighters.
how many other 11-year-old Muay Thai fighters are going up against this poor kid? So it's got to be like,
It's just got to be like a little league.
yeah, there's got to be a
The Australian Muay Thai.
yeah.
kid
Again,
league.
Actually,
we have to
the
ask Beck,
same.
Beck, how big is the Australian Muay Thai community? No.
I mean, I don't know what it is with like 11-year-olds. I couldn't imagine there's a great pool of talent, but maybe you get matched with people that are similar weights. So, maybe there's like a scrawny teenager that's doing it at 15. I don't know. But I did hear the actor having an interview, and apparently he's terrified of horror movies. The only genre of horror he can cope with is a zombie film.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
To that a little bit though about the Muay Thai, that's actually fairly popular. The same friend with the goat in the tub,
Yeah.
he trains Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I think it was like 21 or 22, maybe 20, like one of the first gigs.
Capoeira? Is that what you saw? Is that
No,
is that-
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is what I did. I
Oh,
did
okay.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah,
first.
no, capoeira is different. It's different style. He trained in jiu-jitsu, and he trained in Dochipares, which is
Okay.
I think 12 sticks it's called. And one of the first like gigs I ever got actually was filming at a street fair. His class that he takes, him and the teacher were trained. There was a kids class that learned jujitsu and dochipares. So these kids are 8 to 12 years old learning stick fighting,
Wow.
Yeah.
learning all this stuff. And that was actually one of the first, like I said, one of the first gigs I ever got was recording these kids at the street fair doing their routines, and then like they gave them all their certificates and everything there, and then I got to edit it and put it and for their YouTube channel. So there was at least a dozen or so children who were fully learning Brazilian jiu-jitsu and stick fighting at 8, 9, 10 years old. There was a couple of kids, maybe 2 or 3 of them that were maybe 6 or 7.
Wow.
And this is in Queens.
I gotta say, it's probably a bigger market than I thought.
It's
Yeah.
it's very popular, and you know what, I it got really popular specifically because of UFC and MMA,
Yes.
because when that got big in the 90s, suddenly all these kind of obscure types of martial arts got really popular.
Yeah.
And Muay Thai became a big defensive method in MMA.
Right.
Became a big thing that they and I think that like the Gracies had their style of fighting, and that incorporated a lot of Muay Thai, because a lot of it is offensive. It's all about letting your opponent come at you first and then using their body against them.
Right.
And that's where it got popular. So it's actually a whole Brazilian martial arts studio. That was the first time I learned what a I forget what they call it. It's a delicacy that they have. It is a partially fertilized egg, and that they eat.
Yeah.
I forget the name of it.
I forget the name of it too, but it was something that another New Year's party that they had, and they have these eggs for everybody, and they eat them at midnight.
Yeah.
Like it's just they're one of the things that they do, but it's a partially fertilized I think duck egg. So yeah, like some of them, if they go to like some of them are actually a little crunchy because there's parts of, I said, it's partially fertilized, so whatever's inside is somewhat growing, so there is something to actually chew.
Delicious.
Yeah.
I forget what they call it, but oh man, the first time I had that was also the last time I had it, but nonetheless.
Grow up. I'm looking at your face.
It's like, why is this egg crunchy?
Oh yeah. I thought I took the shell off. No.
Yeah, it's like red on the inside too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my God! I ate an egg.
Creating new phobias as we speak.
Yeah. Oh, the scrambled egg is quacking. Oh my God. All right.
Um,
Well.
I might have to run out because I have a business call
Yep.
in a few minutes. But unless we have other things to
Yeah.
talk about.
I mean, the only other thing I thought of quickly was that Laura Sally Hawkins refused any stunt doubles. She did all of her stunts herself.
Really,
Yeah, which I thought was really interesting thing to do, and clearly not shot in America because
the unions would have been
yeah
all over that. I don't know what Australian unions are like,
or Australian insurance companies.
Australian insurance
Yeah.
companies.
I'm not sure, but I know that the actress who played Piper also wanted to do her own stunts too, which is incredible.
Right.
Yeah,
Which
when
is
she runs into that pole, man.
Oh,
That stunt. That
oh
was.
my god, yeah.
I laughed so hard at that moment. I laughed so hard.
God, we really are different people. Like we're aligned in some ways, but I was like, "Oh," and you were laughing your ass off.
I mean, I felt that too, but it was just, again, it's the movie of it. It's like, of course she's gonna hit her. Of course it's gonna happen.
Oh, I probably will laugh on it the next time I watch it. It's definitely those movies I've watched where it's like the first time I'm horrified, the second time I'm laughing my ass
Yeah.
the whole way through. Inside was like that, the French film. I was like, the first time I watched it, I was like, this is disgusting. This is horrific. This is the worst movie ever. Second time I watched it, I was like, this is fucking hilarious.
This is crazy. Yeah.
One of the great black comedies.
Well, that's it. Yeah, because there's so many French horror films that are actually black comedies, and you don't necessarily pick that up the first time you're watching it.
Because they are
Yeah.
very black comedies.
Yeah.
They are really dark, but they can be hilarious, after you've acclimated.
Yeah. All right.
think
Well, yep.
Struck me with the two movies of Talk to Me and Bring Her Back are this through line of grief.
Yeah.
For all of them. So Talk to Me, it's about a girl who is coming to terms with her mother's death and the grief that comes with that and the lengths that she will go to connect again with her mother. So, through the hand and through this demon that manifests itself as her mother, she's, willing to almost, again, kill another child so that she can, reconnect again with her mother and then bring her back is told from a parent's perspective, losing their child and the lengths that they will go to, reconnect again with their child. So I think it's really interesting that they're not identical films, but they're really companion pieces.
Mhm.
Yeah, and again, we've touched on it, but also just going from a movie like Talk to Me, in 2 years to Bring Her Back, just a huge leap of filmmaking skill and maturity in storytelling that obviously, as we talked about, do actually come from a level of grief.
Yeah.
But even then, just to make that leap from Talk to Me to Bring Her Back, and in no way am I putting down Talk to Me because I love Talk to Me, but it wasn't the level of
it. What like Talk to Me was a movie
artistic skill
I've sort of seen before.
Mm-hmm.
They did it at the highest level you could probably do that type of movie, but it was
with a twist I didn't see coming.
But it was very similar to a Bye Bye Man or a movie like that where you're like, oh, I've seen this, but 99 times out of 10 it fucking sucks.
Right.
And they just really nailed that one.
Right.
But this was one where I'm like, oh, only these guys could have made this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and even then to talk about things that could have sucked or whatever, even the little things in Bring Her Back that could easily have been goofy and have me kind of chuckle at it, like the whole thing with the plane. Traveling at the end, and him explaining that there are so many movies that are like, all right, okay, but like I actually welled up at that. They managed to convey that in a way that was really emotional.
Yeah. And to that same about the filmmaking growth is that it's something I mean, like I'm feeling it myself in my own, from one film to the next, where Talk to Me was kind of a bigger production of a film. Like you had 6, 7 friends that were going through and their families, you have a good like dozen or 12 to 15 like characters in the film, and a lot bigger locations and a lot bigger of a production. And then it's only like 4 main characters, but the story itself is a bigger story with more lore to it. Talk to me, they really didn't explain a whole lot.
Yeah.
You know, they just kind of here's this, you don't know where the hand comes from. You don't know why it works. You don't know why it does what it does. You don't even really know exactly what it's going to do until you see it happen. And even then you're kind of like, but why does this work? Like at the end of the film, you realize there is going to be another, you don't need another movie, but there's going to be one because there's clearly some lore here that they didn't explore. And maybe it's because they didn't figure it out entirely themselves, you know, or they just didn't know how to tell it properly. So they just kind of, okay, well, we don't have to explain this hand. Just know that the hand works. You
Right.
know, this one, it's all kind of there. The only thing that's really not explained is the people on the videotape, you know, but you can infer as to who they are.
Right,
You know, you can
exactly.
infer as to what they're doing based on because you're watching her do it.
That's
You know,
exactly. Yeah, I saw that as a vehicle for her, or just that was her encyclopedia. You know,
Mhm.
what I mean? That's
Yeah.
how I saw it. That was her. And at first you're like, you have no idea what the connection is because it's almost night and day from scene one to scene two.
Yeah.
But as the film goes by, you realize, oh, this isn't. There's no story connection, but there are beat connections from what she is taking from this.
It's something totally interesting as well. Like I don't know where this came from, but I noticed it in this. I happened to watch another movie recently, and I can't think of what it is, but they did the same thing. And I've noticed it's happened a couple of times in the last maybe year or two. Did you notice that they played the videotape? Okay, right in the beginning. And then it went to more production logos and then into the rest of the movie.
This is not a cult.
Oh.
Yeah, at the very beginning.
Yeah, from when I saw that, it was like, oh, this is a thing, and then it went, and I learned, I was like, oh, that was a production logo because it was just like 5-10 seconds of something, and then the baby's head and everything. It was weird, you know, the baby's face and all that, and then it went away, and I'm like, oh, that. I think that was a production logo. Like I didn't realize it was actually part of the story. I saw another movie that did the same thing. It showed like 10 seconds of, and then it went to logos again. Like usually you get the logos,
Yeah.
you know, and you'll get the credits interspersed with an opening bit of the story, but not like logos, story, more logos, and then more story and credits.
Interesting.
Like it's really weird how they cut it into the opening logos where you're not even paying attention yet
Right.
because the movie hasn't officially begun. And I just watched it. I could look it up, but it's just going to take a minute. It doesn't matter. Where they did the same thing. I'm like, that is so weird that they put story during opening logos.
I like it. I like being thrown off a little bit, but I'm wondering if it is maybe um a symptom, not a symptom, that's the wrong word, but just like an aspect of like when you watch a trailer and they put 5 seconds, that's like the entire trailer condensed in 5 seconds at the top. So you
Yeah.
don't get bored for the, it's like, I'm wondering if it's like,
Oh,
here's
they show a
first
trailer for the
thing,
trailer.
yeah, the
Yeah.
first thing you're seeing is this intriguing thing, so you don't even get lost or
Yeah.
bored.
Like, you know, yeah, it's an opening stinger, you know,
Yeah.
but it wasn't even like an opening stinger because there's 2 or 3 logos before it. Like if it was the first thing you saw, I like, okay, that's fine. We're gonna show
Right.
this. We're gonna blast you with this, and then we'll go into everything. And yeah, it was just really strange that it was right in the middle. And then I happened to see another movie that did the same thing,
Right.
and I'm wondering where this style comes from of doing that. This is also a
Let me ask you
recent
this. Do you remember if it was an American film or not?
off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to look it up now.
I'm wondering if that has something to do with it too, or
It does strike me as a uniquely, um, for lack of a better term, like online way of approaching the beginning of a film, and I could see at least coming from the Filippos having
Yeah.
experience in that.
I'm looking at my letterbox diary and I can't pick out which one it was. I can't pick which film it was, and I'm like, oh, which one was that? Because I don't remember exactly what it was that happened during the credits, but during the logos, and I'm just like, that just happened, you know? Maybe it was Property, that the one on Shutter.
I haven't even heard of that one.
Yeah, it's a newer. Yeah, it was. and that's a Spanish film.
Oh, I do actually think I've heard of that one.
Yeah, the one with the workers on the farm.
Okay.
Is what it's
Oh,
about. It might have been that one. Because that's like the most. So it could, like you said, it's not an American film. So maybe it's a thing that kind of has slowly happened in some foreign films. And I just never noticed it.
Something else I think is interesting with the two movies is how the protagonists both have parents die in bathrooms.
oh my God.
Bring her back, the lead girl, her mother dies in a bathroom, and then with the two main siblings, their dad also dies in the shower in a bathroom type area. So I think that's an interesting parallel with the two protagonists of both films. I don't know if it has any significance, but it's just something that struck me about both of the films.
So
Mm.
Philippines probably have some bathroom trauma to keep doing that.
Yeah.
Maybe they personally have something. One of them has something that personally traumatized them that connects to a bathroom
Right,
in
right.
order to do that.
Oh, well. All right.
I do have to go. 'Cause I
Yeah,
have a
we're
call
gonna.
at
Yeah,
4.
I'm gonna wrap this up
Um,
for us. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for just sitting with us for another episode. I hope you've either seen Bring Her Back, but if you haven't, please go out.
Better have
Word of
spoiled the shit out of this.
word of warning that it can be triggering for someone who does not necessarily want to watch something that has to do with violence around children. So just please know that. Thanks again, guys, for being on our show. We love having you on. Manny, where can we see you next?
You
Or
find
what project do you have next?
just everything. All my stuff is on massgravepictures.com, and I'm a co-host on Haunted Hangover. So those are the two main places to find me.
Oh, cool. And I actually just listened recently. What was it? Oh, you were doing was it not the Guardian, but
Yeah,
the Michael Mann film. Oh, I'm sorry, the William Friedkin film.
yeah, the Guardian.
Yeah, that was really a fun episode.
Oh man,
Yeah, that was a fun
Friedkin's a
episode.
lunatic.
Yes, exactly. So it was, and we hope to somehow talk about him sort of soon. Beck, where can we see you next? What projects are you working on? What can we do with
So
you?
yeah, the one who got called in, there'll be some festival announcements coming soon. I'm not allowed to talk about what's coming up, but there'll be some more screenings happening over the summer. And then once I get back from my honeymoon, I'm going to start tackling my first feature. So that's something really
Oh
exciting.
wow!
Yeah.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah, a collaborator of mine, Louis Cortez, and I started working on developing a short play, originally into a short film, but I think it's now time for me to tackle my first feature. So once I get back from Amsterdam in July, I'm going to revisit the project and get back in there.
Oh,
Oh, that's
fantastic,
awesome.
fantastic! And Louis Cortez, since Manny's here, is also your co-host on the Haunted Hangover. So everything comes full circle. Wow, fantastic! Thank you.
Yeah,
And we could also see Beck later this month, kissing corpses at Wakes. So apparently it's an Australian thing. So
she goes around doing
just
that.
random Wakes.
The lucrative side
Any
dating.
funeral, I'll be there. Just
Yeah,
look forward to every-
just kissing up corpses. Thanks again for watching us. If you need to follow us, you can follow us on Instagram, TikTok. You can kind of follow us on Facebook and X. And of course, please don't forget to like and subscribe our YouTube channel once again. My name is Rob Graydon. This is also Stabby Tech Josh. On behalf of all of us, we will see you next time. Thank you.
The
Thank
Stabby
you.
Road podcast was created by Joe Senna, hosted
shit,
by Rob
guys.
Yep,
Graydon,
and that's something I
Sonia
don't have to do
Harcourt,
later.
and Joe Senna. Recording technicians Josh Graydon and Eric Todd. The Stabby Road podcast is a production of Fourth Castle. All rights reserved. See you next week.